Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gunpowder and Freedom. So if you have been subscribed to my channel, you might recognize this place behind me. If you're new to my channel, which thank you for subscribing, you might be asking yourself, Steve, where the heck are you? Looks like a pack rat lives there. I mean, there's golf clubs and a sea of sprayers, some, bunch of garbage cans, just a bunch of clutter. Well, for all the new subscribers, I am in the bottom part, the basement of my dad's garage. This is the home base for TSH Concrete, as well as Concrete with the Hosses. If you don't know that channel, which you probably do because I feel like I get a lot of subscribers from my dad's channel, that's his channel. Check it out. We do some pretty cool stuff with concrete. Anyways, back to the topic on hand. I'm in the bottom part of the garage, specifically, let me walk over here, the countertop division, I guess. It's a little bit messy right now. My brother was just in here doing countertops for his house. They turned out pretty awesome. But today, unfortunately, I'm not going to be at the property. I'm not going to be at the shooting range, which is a little bit of a bummer. But occasionally, I do have to do some work because firearms, ammunition, any sort of property management, fuel for the machines, really everything costs money. So I need to make some money occasionally. So right now I'm going to be forming and pouring a small countertop for a friend of mine. It's for his new business building, I guess, his new garage office building. He called me up and said, hey, we have a small little countertop we want to do for our kitchen area. Is that something you can do? I said, absolutely, Curtis. I'll get you all hooked up. So let me pop over there and I'll show you what we have going on. Okay, so obviously this area needs cleaned up a little bit. That's not going to take me too long. Just a quick sweeping. It's a small piece of countertop, so I only need a very small section of flooring to make sure the melamine is sitting nice and flat. We don't want to have any debris underneath it that holds the melamine up and gives us a curve or a bow to it. But this is what we're doing. It's, again, just a small little piece of countertop. We used to make templates like that, hanging on the wall. Sometimes we still do that if it's a more complicated piece, maybe with like a farmhouse sink or something like that. But with the simpler stuff like this, we can just do a drawing. We have a wall here and a wall here. This side here is open as well as this side here. So sides 1 and 2 will be finished. Sides 3 and 4 don't have to be finished, but you want to clean them up just to make sure they sit flush against the wall. We have one sink, one faucet. Down here is all of the measurements and everything I need to know for the positioning of the sink and the faucet. So yeah, I am going to get the camera set up and get this place cleaned up real quick. So that'll just be a real quick time lapse. While that's going, think about hitting that like and subscribe. One quick thing before we actually get started is that these countertop videos end up being a little bit on the longer side because the process for them, there's a lot of hours involved to make these things, the way we do. So I've done a few videos on these. I did one in sections. I think there's 3 or 4 parts. I'm going to really try to limit my talking just because, we want to keep these videos on the southern side of 20 minutes. I feel like 20 minutes is kind of people tend to watch for 7 or 10 minutes and then they go somewhere else. So that's no problem. I appreciate everybody's support. But what I'm going to do is while I'm working, I'll include a link to each video that goes more into detail. So if you're thinking about doing this yourself or you're just interested in the process and why we're doing things the way we do them, you can check out those videos or drop me a comment and I'll try my best to get back to everybody. Thanks. Okay, so this area here is nice and clean. There's no debris stuck to the ground. All of the dust and pieces of concrete have been scraped and swept. I had a fan running to help keep circulating the dust out of here. I took this piece of melamine outside. I scraped the back side that was used the last time. You can only use each side of the melamine once, various reasons, but I scraped the back side. I'm going to go ahead and do layout and start forming the countertop on this side. Okay, so I chose to flip the countertop this way. So I'm going to go ahead and get my sink template made, my faucet template made. That'll go in over here so that whenever we flip this to polish the surface, the sink will be on this side rather than this side. Because remember, we have to do these upside down. So what I did was, according to my measurements, I have a cabinet extending about over to here for our sink. They wanted it centered on the cabinet, so I just found center of that space, pulled it from this side, which will be up against the wall that I took my measurement off of. So the center of the sink will fall, if you can see it, on this line. Now I pulled measurements from the back wall to find my faucet hole, which will be positioned right here, and then the top of my sink template will be right here. So whenever I make these templates, all I have to do is line the top of the sink up, the template, with this mark here, and then just pull the same numbers off this side to the side of the template in two spots to make sure it's nice and straight. So I'm going to go ahead, head up to the wood shop, find some 1.5" blue board, and I'll show you guys how we make our sink templates. So for this particular sink, they didn't give us a paper template. So what you have to do, you have to flip the sink over, reach your hand in one of the drain holes and trace the sink. Make sure you get a nice solid line that you can see and cut your template out from that. Using the bandsaw, I'm able to cut the template out pretty close to the line. You want to stay about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch away from your actual line, and you'll see why. After you do your rough cut, you can use a sander. Here I'm using a belt sander to sand the foam down to the line and get a nice clean finish on the edge of this template. After it's sanded, you wrap it with tape so you get a nice clean finish on the concrete and the concrete doesn't stick to the foam. So I just got back from Home Depot with everything I need. You can get pretty much everything for concrete countertops at Home Depot or some sort of builder supply company. If you want to see more into detail about the type of materials we use for these, quantities, measurements, formulas, don't forget to check out the Gotta Pay the Bills series. I believe I cover all this in part 1.
The link was earlier in this video, but if you need a refresher on it, go ahead and check that out. The amount of color variation is going to dictate how you pour these. If you don't want a lot of color variation, then you want to pack in your concrete nice and tight. It's going to limit the number of air pockets you have. If you want a lot of color variation, you don't want to pack it in that tight. You want to try to leave as many air pockets as you can so that when you cream coat it, you have a lot of room for the countertop to accept that new color. So after we let the countertop sit for 3 days to cure and build up strength, we flip it and start our polishing. This starts the next video in the series, Gotta Pay the Bills. It would be part 2. Here's a link for it. Check it out if you want more information. But the gist of it is, when you're polishing, you start with your 50 grit polishing pads, and then you switch to your 200 grit polishing pads. This is going to give you a nice smooth surface. It's not going to hold any excess amount of cream coating. And then for the edging, you want to use 50 grit polishing pad and then your 200 grit polishing pad. It'll save a lot of wear and tear on your arm. Check out the video if you want more information, or drop me a comment. After you have your countertop polished down with your 200 grit polishing pads, you want to mix up a slurry of Portland cement and whatever color you want your skim coat to be. Here I'm using a grout float to really work it into the open pores to make sure they're all filled up. 99 times out of 100 you're going to have to repeat the polishing and cream coating steps 2, maybe 3 times depending on how the pores accept the cream coat. Typically after about 8 to 10 hours, the cream coat is hard enough that you can polish it down using your 200 grit polishing pads. If your pores aren't filled the entire way with the cream coat, you're going to want to wait for the countertop to dry or dry it off somehow and reapply the cream coat and then wait for it to dry and polish it down again.
Okay, so there it is, all finished up. That was the polishing and cream coating. The next step is to wait for this to dry and then seal it. That's a fun process. That's when you actually get to see all of the color. Whenever it's wet, this gives you a good idea of what it's going to look like. The sealer, however, brings out a lot more of the color. So now this is an undermount sink. So we had to clean up the face, make that look real nice, as well as the front and that side edge. And there's the backsplash over there. Stay tuned.
So now I'm sealing these countertops. In the Gotta Pay the Bills Part 3, I cover how to do the epoxy sealer. This is a different type of sealer, one that I'm spraying. I find that I get a lot nicer finish and it's a lot easier to control. Basically, it is just Butterfield Clearguard Pro 350 sealer mixed with some xylene to thin it out. You spray it on nice and even, and with this particular process, you have to do about 4 to 5 coats just to make sure you don't have any high spots or puddles forming. You want to make sure everything is evenly covered. Occasionally you'll have to sand it down, but if you want to check out Part 3 of Gotta Pay the Bills and how to apply epoxy sealer with a roller, here's a link for it. Check it out or drop me some comments with some questions.
Okay, so there's coat number 2. I can already tell right away that a lot of that sealer stayed on top rather than being absorbed, which means that that first coat, all of that sealer got pulled into the concrete, which is a really good thing. It means that first coat of sealer is going to bind really well. It was nice and clean. So second coat of sealer is going to bind even nicer to the first coat. So I'll give this probably the overnight and come back up tomorrow, sand it down, and give it probably another coat, and we'll see how number 3 looks on top of that. Maybe give it a 4th coat. We want these things looking real sharp for Curtis for his new office building, so that's the plan.
Once you have your sealer looking good and everything is nice and smooth, it's time for install. This install was particularly easy. Basically, you just had to carry the one piece in, set it down on the existing cabinets. Then I ran a bead of caulking down the backside of the backsplash, pressed it up tight against the wall. I personally like to tape off the backsplash in the wall, well, the concrete as well as the wall for caulking. I like to use silicone based caulking. It wipes nicer, your fingers clean off easier, and the tape really helps to make sure you have a nice line, a nice sharp edge on your caulking. Everything looks nice and clean. Afterwards, we have to get the sink mounted, so I'll show you that here in a second.
So I use a wood clamp and stick it through the hole here. Sometimes you have to pop this end piece off to make sure it stays. and then reattach it, rehook it up. That's what I had to do. Sometimes these don't fit through the drain hole. And then we just use the wood clamp it to a piece of wood so we can get that a nice tight seal. We use paper towels or some sort of rag for this board to protect the concrete while we're doing this. Next, I'm going to go ahead and get the mount fasteners, or the sink mount fasteners, hooked up and in there. That is what, let me see if I can get you a shot here. That's what we used these anchors for. So now I can just use my brackets to go ahead and secure this sink. Alright everybody, that is a wrap for that one. You know, I know it was a weird video, didn't really do much explaining, but I hope the tags along the way to the other videos that I did in sections so that I could take more time to explain. I hope that was at least somewhat of a help. If you missed it, you know, you can go through and check them out, or just scroll through my past videos, and it is the series titled Gotta Pay the Bills. I took my time through that, and I think there's like 3 or 4 videos that I explained in detail each step. So start to finish, that's the process. I cut out some stuff, just, you know, when you see cream coating and polishing once, I don't really think you need to see it again, but you know, if you want to, rewatch the video, that's cool. I'm alright with that. So with all that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning back into another episode of Gunpowder and Freedom. If you liked what you saw, please click the like and subscribe. Don't forget to like us on Instagram, and check back for more videos on the project house, I guess. I need a cooler name for that, as well as some other videos. Opening day of Deer is coming up, so taking a siesta or a sabbatical from the firearms videos. Gotta keep the property nice and quiet, keep those big buck there, can't push them out. So, but yeah, check back and see what's going on here later. Appreciate everybody's support as always, and we'll see you next time.